Good evening. We're calling this meeting of the Community and Economic Development Committee to order. It is about 5:30 on Monday, December 15th. Mr. Claiborne, if you call the roll.
Mr. Alec, Mr. Baltimore.
Here.
Ms. Daniels, Mr. Kaplinski.
Here.
Ms. Reed, Ms. Wilson, Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Ms. Claiborne. We're here this evening for our third meeting on LERTA, a 10-year tax abatement and exemption program for the entire city of Harrisburg. This is a meeting which we felt was important to have in the public. Of course, all of our meetings are in the public at City Hall, but we wanted to take it out off-site from City Hall. And so we are here at the City Public Works building on Paxton Street, and what we're going to do is we're going to hear from the mayor, and he will speak on the administration's proposal for a 10-year tax abatement and exemption program, and then we will probably hear some new amendments that the solicitor has to make as well, and then comments from council members and of course the public. Mayor, you have one?
Okay, I shall see if this works.
Thank you.
Testing. Does not work. We'll just take this one. Okay, hello everyone. We can try and make this a little informal since it's a small group and something of an intimidating room. We have, welcome. Councilwoman Daniels has arrived. I'll just walk through the LERTA bill again. If you've already heard this a bit before, I apologize. But for the folks watching at home, this is another attempt just to talk about why we feel what we're proposing here is important. We've had a long process, and the end result of this process has been to create a LERTA bill for Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is unlike any other LERTA bill ever proposed for the city, or really any LERTA bill in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We feel that we're going to be precedent setting and create something which will have a larger impact throughout the whole Commonwealth once people see the possibilities of what is in this bill. The bill represents an attempt at incorporating all of the feedback that we've had at the various meetings that we've had into a bill which truly benefits Harrisburg residents. Some of the interesting factors of the bill are that we are creating a position of LERTA administrator and an appeals board, a LERTA appeals board, a 3-member board which is going to be comprised of one representative from each of the taxing bodies, one from the city, one from the county, and one from the school board. And the LERTA administrator's role will be to sort of oversee the process and indeed determine whether or not the tax exemption or abatement should be awarded. Individuals interested in fixing up properties will come to the city. Maybe they'll be lured to the city through the RFP, which we're planning to have the Redevelopment Authority put out for city-owned properties. But they will come and they will apply for a permit to do construction and to do renovation work. The LERTA administrator will work with them, and after that work is completed, the LERTA administrator will make a determination as to whether or not to award the LERTA. And we've got some interesting aspects to this. The first is that if they're found by the LERTA administrator not to have complied with the requirements that are in the bill, then there will be no LERTA awarded at all. So while there is the potential for 100% LERTA, both for residential and for commercial properties, it's certainly not a guaranteed thing. On the commercial side of things, we actually start with a proposal for a 50% LERTA over 10 years. And we have a very interesting job creation component matrix in the bill, which basically allows whoever is doing a commercial development to get up to 100% abatement for the project, but only if they bring real jobs to the city of Harrisburg. This was an effort to incorporate the feedback of the community, which basically said, how can we have a LERTA bill that does more than simply award something once and done and doesn't look to the long-term impact on the community? This bill does that because over the course of the 10 years, the LERTA award could either go up or down in percentage depending on the number of jobs that are created or remain. In other words, they're certified on a yearly basis. So a project could start with no jobs, which would mean it would start with a 50% LERTA. Maybe in year 2 or 3, suddenly it will have lured maybe 10 or 15 permanent jobs or 20 permanent jobs to the city. Well, then the exemption would go up to 70%. If that business were to leave, then it would go back down to 50% and so on and so forth. And these are permanent jobs defined as jobs which didn't already exist in the city of Harrisburg before. So that is a very, very interesting way to approach the commercial side of the LERTA. On the residential side, and actually on the improvement side, also really having to do with let's start with just new construction. On the new construction side, both residential and commercial, where potentially you're going to see folks coming in and building from scratch, not individuals looking to fix up a blighted property, but let's say start from scratch. On those new construction projects, we've put in a series of qualifying conditions, again, which reflect the input of the community. Those conditions are really unprecedented in Pennsylvania. They include, among other things, a commitment to pay prevailing wage, which is certainly important and unique, an effort to answer the question of how do we not only create jobs, but how do we create meaningful jobs. The pay well and pay a living wage. Also, 15% of the total employee workforce, the total budget for folks employed on the job during the construction phase must go to city residents. Also something which has never been tried before, which will be able to be verified, and residents are defined as individuals who have lived in the city for at least a year. So not temporary jobs that sort of come and go, but people that have lived here are going to get an actual guaranteed percentage of the jobs created. And again, this is a qualifying condition, so if those conditions aren't met, then no LERTA, 0% is awarded. Also during the construction phase, 15% of the overall contracting has to go to minority businesses. And that is defined as the sort of overall budget. 15% of that has to go to minority businesses. Those 3 clauses alone, I think, really protect the residents of Harrisburg and make sure that what is being given out here passes the threshold of causing an immediate and positive impact in the lives of city residents. I have said long and before that the whole reason that we have to do LERTA at all is really, I think, two strong reasons. The first is from a war on blight standpoint, and that's where the map comes in, and Jackie's not here to go over the map, but from a war on blight standpoint, we have hundreds and hundreds of properties right now available from the redevelopment authority or the county or at tax sales, all going for pennies. Nobody wants to put the time or money into invest in those properties and to improve those properties. With the LERTA incentive, they will. It changes the dynamics such that we will actually see those properties renovated. There is a privileging of the renovation of existing properties over new construction in the bill because those qualifying conditions apply to new construction. We're encouraging the adaptive reuse of a lot of Harrisburg's building staff rather than simply the tearing it down and starting over. And we're trying to create an economic incentive to make that development worthwhile. Basically, as I've explained in the past, the way things have worked in Harrisburg over the years is that we have a very relatively low assessment or property value, but a very, very high tax rate. And over the years, rather than raise the average assessed value, we've simply raised the rates higher and higher to squeeze more and more out of Harrisburg taxpayers. That's resulted in a system which makes it very difficult to do new construction, because when you do new construction, you are assessed at a higher rate. So you have a higher rate of assessment, the actual construction rate, plus the higher rate of taxation. So the LERTA essentially adjusts for that and makes it possible for people to use their dollars, employ their dollars within the city of Harrisburg at a rate which is competitive to elsewhere. So I think I've gone over some of the highlights of the bill, some of the general reasons. We've been doing this for a while. I think the main theme is that we have tried to be responsive to public opinion. We've tried to create something that is nothing like the city or even the Commonwealth has ever seen before, and is really going to be precedent-setting in good ways. We have met with council already. I think this is our third hearing. In the last couple of hearings, we've started working on a series of amendments, all of which we support, in an effort to make this even more transparent. So there are going to be amendments requiring a reporting function to City Council. There's also going to be an amendment which allows City Council to cancel the program after 5 years if, in their eyes, it's deemed as not working or not being successful. There's some other amendments, and with that, why don't I pass it over to the solicitor to talk about some of the other things he's been working on. Sound good?
Sure, and I apologize, I have to leave.
Thank you, Mayor.
So,
If the clerk would note that President Williams and Councilwoman Daniels have arrived.
Thank you, and I apologize ahead of time, I'm going to have to depart. I have to plane to meet in a few minutes, but there were 5 amendments that were presented at the last meeting to the council based on suggestions of council, which we've incorporated in to the original language to be amendments. 3 of them added specifically to the LERTA administrator's responsibilities to ensure that the program actually had some obligations that could be enforced. The 4th was to add to the notice provision of there's a mandatory notice block that will go on every application and contract. The policy and statements regarding that applicants and developers and contractors are all encouraged to employ minority business contractors, women, underrepresented individuals, and LGBT and other groups that are at the moment specified in various laws differently. What we did is actually in the ordinance portion, that is the mandatory portion, we kept it at minority participation so that the ordinance actually requires minority participation. As people who work in the area, I think, have seen, that definition sometimes gets changed, and we didn't want to lock ourselves into something that didn't comport over the entire course of it. The LERTA administrator is authorized to then create regulatory schemes to employ those, which is, I think, a unique feature of this particular ordinance. It really is going to rely on an administrator and an appeal board. The administrator is required to make the regulations that get presented to both the mayor and council, and to create the contracts and to create the applications. Each application and contract are going to have mandatory provisions that capture this ordinance so that the purposes of this ordinance are served throughout the course of the programs. In general structure, what Pennsylvania law provides and what this ordinance captures is really 4 different categories of abatement: new commercial construction, commercial improvements; new residential construction, residential improvements. The requirements go to new construction projects because of the practicalities of residential improvements in particular. It'd be very hard to do a residential improvement and it would discourage people from really investing in their own property if you had to add to the cost of what is normally done, things like prevailing wage and the mandatory minority participation. There wouldn't be practical ways to apply that to individual property owners. So we have made this requirement for the new construction that is going on. 2 additional amendments which are just being brought in tonight based on our last meeting is we provided language which for third-party complaints being able to be entertained by the LERTA administrator, which we'll present, and provisions would add to the statement of purpose to address one of the concerns I think Mr. Kaplinski had raised, which was making sure that properties that were coming from the public sector, that part of the purpose of this is to transform those public sector properties into the private tax, return to the tax base essentially, which is a big part of this. I think the mayor has said several times in the past, this program is designed to lean towards residential improvement. You know, one of the purposes is to create affordable and quality housing in the city, and to take things that have been neglected for a long time and find a way to put them back into use that eventually will make them tax-paying properties. Through the programs related to construction, it's both a long and a short-term program. That is, the short term is to provide construction jobs along the way. The long term is to provide commercial improvements that add additional exemption amounts for the new construction for permanent jobs in the city. So it attempts to do both. And it is, I think the mayor is correct, unique. We've taken what's come from several other cities. We've looked at it, we've weaved it in. We tried to provide a due process for both the applicants, but also so that the city council can stay engaged and understand and be apprised of what goes on. We've also added a provision where one of the LERTA administrators will report back to the council on a semi-annual basis on each of the projects that are ongoing, and that in 5 years the program is subject to legislative review by the council, so that they can see if it's working, if it's not working. They can tweak it without taking away the rights of the people that have already received it, but decide whether the program should go on the way it is after that 5-year period. And it was a way to basically, I think, keep everybody at the table and understand the program and be involved in it from the beginning and as it's carried out. I think, Doug, do you have the other amendments, those two?
We do. We have
Okay.
2 additional
And
ones.
can you provide those to council and to others?
Yes.
And we'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. Throw this up to the my other colleagues if they have statements and potential. I've heard multiple say that they may have other amendments. So, Mr. Baltimore, if you'd like to go, unless you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. This is our 3rd meeting, tax abatement. It's 3rd meeting. Well, at our first meeting, I had made a statement regarding what I thought would be constructive additions and suggestions to the legislation, and that was at a committee meeting. And so I am going to talk about it and read it again so that it can get a public hearing. So bear with me, and I'll try to go as quickly as I can. And I'm doing this because we submitted some of our amendments or what we thought were suggestions, and I think the only one that I recognize is coming from some of the ones that we talked about were the 5-year sunset. And I think that's a good addition, but I also think that was one of the weakest suggestions that I made. So I'm going to go back and read what I read at that meeting. Josh Whedon told us that equality is not a concept. It's not something we should be striving for. It's a necessity. Equality is like gravity. We need it to stand on this earth as men and women, and the misogyny that is in every culture is not a true part of the human condition. It is life out of balance, and that imbalance is sucking something out of the souls of every man and woman who's confronted with it. We need equality, kind of now. And so I add to misogyny, racism, and classism as contributing even more to that imbalance. It is my opinion that our politics and our policies should manifest themselves in our programs and our practices, and that our programs and our practices should seek to remedy and relieve the imbalances that suck the souls of those we serve. Whedon's words apply to a world out of balance, and while I know that it is said that all politics is local, please indulge me for a minute. At the outset, I'd like to state for the record that my comments represent my opinion only, and let me also state that I've done a bit of homework and have some experience on the topic of tax abatement. I have interviewed attorneys, developers, the mayor, and the city manager, all who are well-versed on tax abatement programs. I've also done much research examining the pros and cons of this type of tool. That said, it is my opinion that tax abatement programs in general are arguably an ineffective economic development tool. And I say arguably because I welcome the debate, but ineffective, particularly when used in a shotgun, scattered, patterned fashion, as is my opinion being proposed by the administration. If there is empirical evidence that this type of citywide 10-year program is working or has worked in other third-class distressed cities, then I would like to be presented with some type of cost-benefit analysis so that I can make the best and most informed decision that I can. I would also like to see some projections, something similar to a net present value or a projected future return. I understand that tax abatement is merely a tool, but if we're going to put it in our toolbox, let's find out under what conditions that it works most effectively. I believe that we could and should be much more focused on our economic development objectives, that our objectives should be aligned to attack our most pressing problems. If our goal is to eradicate and reduce blight in our most distressed neighborhoods, then that is where we need to direct our incentive packages. If our objective is to retain, expand, and attract certain business and industry clusters, then we should provide incentives for those types of businesses and industry clusters. If our goal is to reduce unemployment among young black males, then let's abate taxes for companies who are making that type of impact. If we are trying to reduce recidivism, then we should reward companies who hire ex-offenders. If we have a crumbling infrastructure beneath our feet, then let's incentivize some company to buy it and replace it. What I propose is for us, the city, to address and incentivize our most pressing problems and problem areas. It's pretty hard for me to agree that every neighborhood in the city qualifies as deteriorated and therefore should qualify as worthy of a tax abatement program. Investment will occur and is occurring in our better neighborhoods without a 10-year abatement program. In addition to what I've already mentioned, the following are just a couple of suggestions that I hope the administration would consider. It's an abatement program for those who have experienced some type of external hardship, similar to those on South 14th Street. A graduated tax abatement program that levies taxes on investment in increments so that those additional users of city services are contributing to the additional burden that they themselves are placing on those services. If we are proposing a 10-year tax abatement program, this is the sunset, then let's institute a 5-year sunset, so after 5 years we can terminate it if it's not working. A tax abatement program that looks at each individual economic development project on a case-by-case basis to determine whether or not it meets with our economic development objectives. A tax abatement program that is in direct accord with our comprehensive planning process and our capital budgeting planning process so that we can monetize these abatements and add their values to future revenues. A program that has a clawback provision that allows the city to recoup abated taxes, and I think the mayor said we will have that as part of this program. And I think this last one that I listed on this list of 7, Neil's told me that it's illegal. But those are just a few suggestions that come to mind. However, I believe what is our most valuable and important economic development tool and resources is our school district. Improving our school district has to be a part of our city's mission. Building a robust relationship with our school system is paramount to our city's growth and success. The Harrisburg School District is growing our most valuable resource. We could and should be incentivizing businesses that build meaningful, mutually beneficial relationships with our district. Those who hire or train our students or contribute to the curriculum or help to provide much-needed materials should be held up as champions and model corporate citizens, not out of charity, but as good and ethical business practices. At the beginning of my statements, I used the phrase, all politics is local, but let me also invoke 2 more. Politics is war by other means, and politics is money talking. These 2 phrases remind us that politics and policies are sometimes used either intentionally or not to create that imbalance that we referred to. How do we account for MFN, most favored nation status with China, and an embargo with Cuba? Is that communism? Apparently not. Could it be money talking? Africa pays up to 20% of its export earnings in debt service to Western creditors, making economic development almost impossible. Yet after World War II, after nearly bringing the world to its knees, Germany never paid more than 3.5% of its export earnings in debt service. Could it be war by other means? In light of the myriad problems that we face globally and locally, most of which exist because of imbalances caused by a disruption of equality, usually fueled by a quest for domination over property, people, or resources. We need to be extremely mindful that our politics and policies manifest themselves in our programs and practices. And our programs and practices should seek to remedy and relieve the imbalances that suck the souls of those we serve. In light of the debate that rages in this country over presidential immigration, over the naming of professional sports teams offensive to Native Americans, or the verdict in the Mike Brown case, all of these events contribute to soul-sucking imbalances that are at the root of what is inequality. We have the chance and an opportunity, and I would add the obligation, to make our world, our country, our city a better and more equitable place. And equality is not a concept. It's not something we should be striving for. It's a necessity. It's like gravity.
I'm sorry to take up so much of your time, but I just wanted to say that one more time.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Other waivers?
Yes, I would like to have additional amendments, please. In 503, section 503-3, it has the city authorize the formation of a 3-member LERTA appeals board with 1 appointee for the city, Dauphin County, and the Harrisburg School District. I would like that to be a 4-member board, and someone from council should represent us on that board. Just maybe even for the oversight reasons, since the mayor has authority to review and reject and ensure, we want to make sure we ensure compliance. Another amendment I would like to make is that we don't want anyone to monopoly this business. We want to be able, this issue, we want to be able to say to that individual that you will not monopolize by having so many houses per year. Right now, we're in a financial fiscal crisis. We still are. We're not solvent yet. So we don't want someone to have a monopoly on this tax abatement. We should put restriction on how many houses they can own, and how many they can do a tax abatement on. So I would like that committee to give that a consideration. And the abatement, the third amendment I'd like to make is the abatement should not be effective until the rehab is fully renovated and ready for sale. The fourth one I would like to...
Could you repeat that?
Okay. Tax abatement should not be effective until the rehab is fully renovated and ready for sale.
That is the case.
Okay?
So that one,
Is already in there?
you have to get your
I didn't see
occupancy
that.
permit before you would get any abatement. That's just the way it works.
Okay. And that's in there because I didn't see that.
Can I?
Yes, you can answer it. Where's it at? Because I looked at this
discuss it?
today.
I don't want to, I won't
Oh.
jump in if you want to do it differently.
Oh, okay. Let me finish with my amendments, please.
Yep.
Okay. I'm sorry. Mayor, I just have a question. What monetary amount are we giving to the residents for tax abatement? I'd just like to see a monetary amount. I see that you say it's regarding how much the actual renovation is, but should we not do a percentage if we're giving tax abatement to those individuals who do renovation and also new construction? We're giving 100%. Should we give the residents some type of monetary amount that we structured?
Residents that do
Right.
renovations?
Renovations on their home. I would like to see that in that. I see a percentage to the developers, our business partners.
No, there's no, the tax abatement is available to everyone. It is available to city residents. So if you don't have to be a developer. If you want to fix up your home and you do so, and the work which you're doing, can everyone hear me okay? The work which you're doing is enough to result in your taxes, your home being reappraised, then that difference is abated just like it is for anything else. So all city residents qualify. and you certainly don't have to be a developer.
Well, what I'm saying to you, Mayor, is that since you indicated that you want to give them an incentive, why does it have to be a percentage of what they do? Why don't they just do any type of renovations to their homes, since we're giving developers who come in 100% tax abatement? Why don't we give the residents, I don't care if they put, what, 30,000 in their home, or if they put 10,000 in the renovation of their homes.
Okay.
If we're trying to give incentive, that's what I keep pushing to you
Okay,
about.
but there's only one set of incentives, and it's available to everyone. It's not like developers have a special incentive, residents have a different incentive. There's one incentive, it's available to everyone.
Okay.
And whatever a developer can get, a resident can get. Actually, it's easier for residents because we don't have the restrictions on new construction that we do for residential rehab, because we really are trying to make that easy and possible. So if a resident wants to fix up their home, again, their taxes are abated at the same rates that if somebody else were fixing up their home, a developer or somebody who wasn't a resident. It's the same for everyone. So that's just a technical point, but there is only one program, and it's available for everyone, regardless of whether or not you're a resident or a developer.
Okay, so now let me make sure I understand this correctly. Because what you're telling me that you just said about 10 minutes ago before you said your statement now, depends on what the percentage of renovations they make to their home. So you know the developers is going to renovate the whole house. Or they're going to do new construction. So what percentage are you giving to the residents? I still don't understand that.
Okay, so I'll try and do that. Basically, you could
This was
ask-
a question asked by one of the residents to ask
I
for tonight.
understand. I think I understand the question. All right, so there's two different types of residential tax abatement. One is for new construction and one is for rehab.
Right.
Okay? So if we take the rehab portion, in order to get any abatement at all, the amount of the rehab being done, whether it's by a resident or by a developer, has to be enough to cause your home to be reassessed. What that triggering amount is really up to the county reassessors. It's probably at least $20,000. You put on a new roof, you're probably not going to get reassessed. You put on a new roof and a new kitchen, you probably get reassessed. Tax abatement only applies to the amount of taxes, the difference in taxes between what you were currently paying and what your reassessed amount is.
So
And we're suggesting that that amount get abated. So it's available, it doesn't matter who you are, if you do a repair and your taxes would otherwise go up, they won't go up under the program. And that's exciting for residents, it's exciting for anyone who wants to make an investment in fixing up a property in Harrisburg. And I think as you begin to see houses fixed up, that will improve the quality of life for all residents and all neighbors of the properties that are being improved.
Now, then again, I'm going to say to you, like I said to you last week.
And if I'm missing if I'm
No.
not answering it,
You can try to answer if you want to, but I'm going to say to you again. You have a certain percentage of people who are low income, certain percentage of people public housing, certain percentage of people senior citizens, and then a small percentage of people that do own their homes. How many will do a major renovation or even a minor renovation that they can get a tax assessment or a tax abatement on? So what incentive, you said last week, this is improved quality of life, my quality of life is fine in my home. How are you giving incentives to residents then? Because most of them can't afford, they're just living paycheck to paycheck in their homes. I asked you again, where's the incentive? Because what if they don't renovate their home? We're still looking at what we can give to developers and anyone else who wants to come in, business owners who wants to buy property or buildings. What incentive are you getting to the residents?
So LERTA only applies to renovations and construction and increased assessments. It doesn't apply to, it's not like a tax rebate system. Although we'd be open to that, and if you wanted to try and create some sort of a separate program, this wouldn't be LERTA, but something which offered seniors or others in Harrisburg some sort of a tax incentive, we could do that. Ultimately, though, we're under Act 47, And we have a sort of mandated earned income tax, which is part of the city's recovery, which we can really neither increase nor decrease. What I said before, and I think this is true, is that we want to be in a position in 3 more years where we can decrease that EIT and also merge from Act 47. In other words, wean ourselves off the earned income tax, reduce that for city residents, and replace that income with additional income which will be generated through new people moving in and working into the city and paying the variety of taxes that they pay, the earned income tax, the local services tax, all the other taxes, which are the business and mercantile taxes, which they'll be paying, because this will incentivize that type of economic growth. So I see this as a longer-term strategic way of being able to reduce taxes for Harrisburg residents. And if we don't take this step to do it, I think we're going to be in a position where that EIT is unable to be lowered in 3 more years, and we're stuck in Act 47. That's why we sort of have to seize the window of this recovery plan, and why we're hoping, and we've been pushing to try and get this in place for next year. So I know that didn't directly answer your question, other than to say that I'm willing to work with you to come up with other interesting tax incentive programs. But in the big picture, we have to come up with a way that we can lower taxes for city residents, because I do believe that they are, in fact, too high.
Well, we knew that from the beginning, but it didn't matter to anyone when we increased the tax last year under the EIT. So that's not a concern of mine right now, because we have to pay the tax. We've already increased it last year. What I want to say to you is, LERTA, under this LERTA, couldn't there be an amendment to those who don't do a major renovation or rehab to the home, but any type of rehab to home, to give an incentive to the residents?
And I just wanted to say something, to take this opportunity, just to remind folks that our Building and Housing Department does have small programs to help residents address some of the issues that you're concerned with. And at some point early next year, I will try to have a committee hearing so that the residents are more aware of those programs. But we do have programs that do help people with things
if
like
they qualify.
and right.
If they qualify.
But they will qualify if they're low income or other things. I think at the previous LERTA meetings we brought some of that material. Jackie Parker couldn't be here tonight, but the city does try and address that in other ways. The reason you can't do what you're suggesting is because the way LERTA works is it's only abating the increase in the assessment. So if there is no increase in an assessment, there's nothing to abate. People aren't paying more in taxes. And we do have a variety, as Councilwoman Daniels has said, of programs which are there to assist, whether they be low-interest loans or other programs, individuals that are looking to fix up their homes in the city.
Mayor and Ms. Daniels, I give you all respect. I already know that, and I think most of the residents already know that too. And you, as well as myself, know that there's so many people who will qualify, and there was a percentage that will not qualify. And they're aware of that program. But you can only do certain things as far as that money only entitles you to do certain things in the house. We're all very much aware of that, and thank you for that information to the public again. Now, my understanding, Mayor, is that I just don't agree with this LERTA. I don't think it's beneficial to the city, and I don't think we're fiscally solvent yet to be doing this. I certainly don't. I thought any savings that we get right now should be a savings. Maybe next year reevaluate this and look at this and do LERTA. But you're talking about quality of life. Economic development should be quality of life. Well, our quality of life is okay right now. I think what makes it worse is the fact that we increased the EIT on these residents last year. It put an awful burden on those single-family homes. So what we need to do is look at an incentive. You keep talking about incentive to the residents. I don't see an incentive here. And that's all the additional amendments I have.
Can I respond to the one
Sure.
on the appeals board? I don't think we want to have an even number of people on the appeals board.
Why?
So that you don't have ties. I think the idea is you have an odd number. That's why we had 3. And we've got 1 from each of the taxing bodies. just so that we're clear, that would be a mayoral nominee and a council approval for that position. So council would have the opportunity to weigh in on the person selected. Would that not be satisfactory in terms of giving council enough say? This won't be a quiet, secret appointment that the council doesn't have a chance to vet and interview and affirm.
May not be the person. Go ahead. I just see it as a problem here. I think that we should have a council member on that board to represent council for the concerns that come in regarding LERTA. Now right here in 503.5, you said the mayor designates is determined by the mayor or designee pursuant to regulations established by the appropriate city bureau. Get my glasses on. So that's true, mayor, that's your designee. And we don't like that designee.
Where are you referring to?
503.5, exemption, okay. 258. You determine that person who's going to be on that board. And you also determine whether or not the construction, they're exempted from the taxes. You determine that.
Well, I'd like us to move to a we and not so much a you. I certainly.
It says mayor here, it doesn't say me or you, it says mayor. It doesn't say council, it says mayor. That's why I have a problem with that. I think that we should have a 4-member board with the council representing for the oversight reasons. Even though we do approve that person, you're still the designee who determines who that individual's going to be on that board.
That is not, I don't think that's applying to the appeals board. I'm not sure what that is.
It says an exemption. That's why I want a person on the 4-member board, because you have under exemption.
Well, regardless, if we clarify it and make it clear, which is that the mayor appoints and council approves for the appeals board, wouldn't that work as an acceptable compromise?
No, I think the member should be on that board. Okay, that's my amendment.
I think from the
You can
county,
take it or whether or not.
I think from the county and the school district's perspective, they would see the city as one voice, and we ought to be able to agree on somebody to appoint to that. And I agree, it's an important position, and we can.
It is, and it's appointed by
We
you.
can certainly
with
start.
your voice, with your ideals, with your issues, and your opinions. We should have someone from council with our opinions, our ideals, our thoughts on that board.
I think the only clarification I would like to see is in the education. In the education component, Mrs. Parker had mentioned earlier that there were cities that had effectively dealt with the spike in foreclosures by more effective education outcomes, and I wanted to have that more clearly articulated what those educational measures were, and how, and what cities were those that were successful that are not here. So I don't know if you know that.
Well, we can work to strengthen that language and can be in touch with you and come up with something that works. One of the things we talked about was making sure that the tax amount is noted on everyone's tax bill, not just the amount that they're paying, but the amount that they would pay if it weren't abated. And that is part of the overall educational component. But we can, we'll work to strengthen that language.
Yeah, I just wanted to see what those examples are, because if I remember correctly, the last time the mortgage materials and the annual report didn't include that information already. So I'd like to see what else. But that's really it. I've already asked all of my questions.
Thank you. So we have two amendments that were added this evening that I think that we should take a look at and speak with the solicitor, the office of solicitor, hopefully by tomorrow morning or afternoon. And then we have additional amendments that are proposed, and we'll ask the solicitor's office to take a look and see what language can be derived on that. First of all, from Ms. Daniels, an educational component be strengthened from President Williams, that we look at a 4-member board for the LERTA Appeals Board, that there is a cap, I'll call it a cap, on the amount of houses or the potentially a monetary amount that one person or entity or a subsidiary of those entities can have per year in total tax abatement. And then one of the orders was already taken care of, that it's not applicable until it's ready for sale. And then I guess we'll continue to have the conversation regarding the benefit for residents making just general renovations. I don't know if we need to go to the solicitor's office yet on that. I think that's a conversation that'll still continue to percolate potentially among council members and the administration per se. So we'll continue the conversation with the administration and the solicitor's office to see as we continue to move forward in the metamorphosis of this bill number 18. We have an opportunity for public comment. Folks are more than welcome to take the mic, and if they like, and make some comments either from their chair or if they'd like to come up and address. Depending on how long our court is.
Thank you. My name is Brian Hudson. I'm the CEO of the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency. I think I spoke for the committee and members of council a number of times, and I just wanted to offer my input again. I think it is a two when we talk about managing expectations for what a LERTA will do. It's just a tool to be used to provide some incentive to get rid of some of these vacant properties. The mayor was referring to this map here, and there are approximately 400 properties that are paying zero taxes, so nothing's being done. President Williams, I know you were concerned about offering incentive to the members who live in the community, but if you have a vacant shell or empty lot in your community, your property value is going to continue to go down. Having done LERTAs in Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, a number of cities across the Commonwealth, and then shared some of that input with some of our other cities across the nation, it is just that a two. The developers got to be willing to take the risk to invest the capital to build the new homes. My company made significant investments over the years in Uptown Harrisburg, in Midtown, Hampton Health Center, and also Mount Pleasant. We got caught in the downturn of the crisis, so we allowed some of those to be rented. But we are both the rental business and a home ownership business. So when I look at this map and I see 400 properties that are paying zero, if we can incentivize there's some work to be done on those properties, that will ultimately in year 11 increase the tax base to the city and have that money flowing in. Are you going to see 400 as soon as you pass the LERTA? No. I'd be surprised if you see 25. But one of the recommendations that I did make is that an RFP be issued, and you target these areas through an RFP with developers who are willing to put their capital at risk to get rid of these shells and these vacant lots. Because otherwise, those neighborhoods are going to continue to deteriorate. Now, as these property values go up, we're going to have a different issue to deal with, but I'd rather deal with more people moving into the city, and that right now that's not happening. And we stand ready to provide some resources to the end mortgage homeowners who want to have a mortgage in the city, which is what we've done in some of these other cities across the Commonwealth. And one of the ways to implement this LERTA correctly is to have a counseling network. And I do believe, Councilwoman Daniels, that having the education component to tell them in year 11 your taxes are going to go up. In some cases, even underwriting them at the year when their taxes will be going up. That's what did not occur when Fox Ridge was done by the Broad Street Market, for instance. So when people saw this increase, they were shocked that their taxes went up. If it's done correctly, and then we have a counseling network also that provides free counseling for those who are threatened with foreclosure, and even have a program called HEMAP, homeowners emergency mortgage system that would help them pay their mortgage if they get into trouble, which is what we're trying to do for some of those homeowners who were threatened with foreclosure or threatened by their lender down in the 14th Street. My brother lives on 14th Street, so he owns his property there. And I can't get his taxes abated, but if his house is damaged, I'm going to be fighting with his lender to get his mortgage forgiven because that's going to be a condemned property also. So we'll be working to help the residents make sure that you understand what they're buying. And year 11, your taxes will go up. But if these vacant shells continue to be here and these vacant lots, then the property values are going to drop and the city's not going to see that revenue. As we get more people to move into Harrisburg, you're going to increase the earned income tax, the revenue, the money that they're spending here, and that's a benefit to the city. But I don't think it's going to be a windfall, if you will, coming in for any developer. Developers got to be willing to risk the capital and then make the investment and be able to recoup their investment, which means sell that home or either rent it to someone that's going to be responsible and wants to move in the city. It has worked very well, and I think this is an aggressive LERTA because it incorporates a lot of concerns that council has brought forward, and rightfully so, with minority participation, commercial piece, the residential piece. So I think it is aggressive, but I don't think it's going to be like 400 people knocking on the door to take these properties at once. If we see 25 a year, that's a win as far as I'm concerned. I'd love to see 50 a year, but I don't know it's going to be that many. But we can do this through an RP, and it can work exactly like it's supposed to rehabilitate some of the neighborhoods around Harrisburg because it's been long overdue. So we'll bring our resources to the table as we have in the past to help rebuild some of these neighborhoods, but we got a long road ahead of us, and I applaud you for taking a look and putting your concerns into the LERTA to make sure that it has the checks and balances that it needs. So thank you.
And Mr. Hudson, thank you very much for your words of encouragement to the city of Harrisburg. And certainly we'll be looking forward to all the help that you can give us. But let me say this to you, those vacant properties that you're talking about, the 400 properties, I agree with you, we need to have target areas in certain areas of the city. And I don't think that's in the LERTA, and so maybe we should add that as an amendment as well, only targeted areas.
Well, you can't do that constitutionally, but you can give RFP to developers to.
Well, that's fine, we can do that, if we can do that, then that's fine.
And I think that's been, you know.
Because the developers are coming in here and they're demolishing homes in the areas, the land's been vacant for a while, and they're not building on it.
Yeah.
So maybe we should start pressuring them to build on it.
The city has promised to do that, and that's part of this. That RFP can also put additional requirements and anything else in it that the city wants to see. So that's part of the targeting and the incentivizing and the making sure that that gets done. It has to, it sort of runs and coincides with this, because if you were to issue an RFP without the added power of the LERTA, nobody is going to reply. The finances just don't work, and that's why they continue to stay vacant and blighted. So, and we will be transparent and responsive to council as that moves along too. I wanted to also address Councilman Baltimore's comments too, which is that all of this has to work in concert with the comprehensive plan and with zoning. So we don't just approve, the city as a whole doesn't approve any land development application that comes its way. It has to be vetted. It goes through a public process. You've got got a series of boards, including the zoning board and the historic architecture review board and the planning board. All of that happens, and so there is no disconnect between the city's overall goals and the projects that are being proposed. And that's going to continue to be strengthened as we go through the comprehensive planning process over the course of this year, and more people weigh in and as to what they'd like to see, what amendments they'd like to see, perhaps for the zoning, and the larger sort of statement of our comprehensive plan going forward. So that will be happening at the same time that we're setting up the office, establishing the LERTA administrator, writing the RFP, and hopefully we'll have all of the groundwork in place so that we can have meaningful economic development that truly does benefit the residents of Harrisburg. It's not just a quality of life issue, it is a job issue, it is a living wage issue. It's a means of making sure that people can find employment and prosperity in Harrisburg
where they don't just have it. So when I look at that map, I see opportunity, and I see the ability to make sure that city residents participate in those projects.
And then on that note, then I strongly suggest that we do, on that note, I strongly suggest that we do that amendment that I asked for, that we should limit that one entity business, small or large, or person, the tax abatement should be staggered, because we should not have one person owning all the properties and being able to buy up the properties at one time to get the tax abatement.
Thank you, Madam President. Other comments?
Hi, Ron Chappell, 3rd Street, Harrisburg. I do have a lot that I want to say, but I'm going to reserve the bulk of my comments for the legislative session. I'll just leave you with this one word that, to me, permeates this whole idea: gentrification.
Ronald Johnson. I'm a community leader in South Allison Hill, have been for the last 9 years. I'm starting to get a new outlook on your frustration, because as I look around this room and I don't see anybody from our community weighing in on what's going on. And you know, I had made a comment at the last legislative meeting, and on Facebook they asked me where was I at when they put that parole office on her street. Well, I'm asking where was the community at? You know, it's right there at the corridor of public housing and another school. So if you don't speak up for your community, then this is what happens. And I'm going to leave that right there.
I'll address the council, the mayor's office. I appreciate the time you give us here to speak this evening. My name is Jim Jones. I'm a member of Local 542 Operating Engineers, and also trustee, executive board member of the State Building Trades Council here in Pennsylvania. I'd just like to speak to the board on the responsible contractor language, and I'll try to keep it short here. We would like to take this opportunity to stress the importance of having the responsible contractor language included in the final LERTA package. Having the language in place will give the citizens of Harrisburg a guarantee that work will be done safely, in the eyes towards long-term quality rather than short-term gain. We want to ensure that the Harrisburg residents feel the benefit of the LERTA for decades to come. Thank you for this time, and hope the process put in place, and we appreciate the ability to speak throughout the process, and would like to see that working in the future. Appreciate this. Thank you.
Sir, did you give us a copy of the contractor language that you wanted to serve?
Yes.
Oh, you, for the last one, okay.
From the last meeting.
Okay. I thought maybe this was additional amendments, I'm sorry.
No.
Okay.
Let me respond to that. I spoke with the solicitor, Mr. Gerber, today on that. He spoke with Erwin Aronson, and they're trying to work out a language that does work for him. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And we support that, but we support it as a side resolution, not as a part of the actual LERTA ordinance. So it's an administrative function of the office. But part of the overall package is you described.
Les Ford, 2033 Bellevue. I would like to take a little side trip here and say that I'm glad we're in this building for this particular meeting, because members of council and the mayor might remember that when Public Works was considering moving, this building wasn't even under discussion. That was going to be down on Cameron Street. That was a done deal. And look at us today. Because of listening to the input of others, we moved into this property as opposed to that property. The point I'm trying to make is that if council and the mayor will listen to the concerns of administrators within the city itself and the concerns of the people on the ground, the citizens, then we have a good chance of arriving at a useful tool. So we experienced that with this building, with Public Works being in this building, and as a result of that, us having this meeting in this building. So that's an example of what can happen when government listens to itself, to its various branches, and to the citizens. So I hope you'll carry that forward. We do have an opportunity to have some movement here, to have some consensus, and to come up with something that benefits Harrisburg. We have that chance still, and I hope you will work continuously toward that goal. I have seen movement. I was in on some of the early meetings, and I was totally displeased with what I was hearing at those meetings. No, let me not say totally, but largely displeased. But I have seen some movement. I have seen some movement in numbers and individual particulars within this proposal. I have seen sort of a change in a sea change, a mindset change in terms of inclusiveness and comprehensive effort. We started out in some of our early meetings talking about the benefit of targeted development versus citywide development. We're still having that conversation right now. And I hear two different opinions still, but at least we're having that. We're having that discussion about whether we should focus on an Allison Hill, 13th Street, South Side, or the city as a whole. I see benefits in either solution, but we will arrive at a solution relative to that issue. So I'm pleased with the movement I've seen. What I have not seen, and Councilman Baltimore went back around to this, is comparative numbers. We've been talking about feel-good kinds of things largely. And I would like to see someone take the initiative to present some specific examples. So you came up with this four-quadrant matrix, commercial, residential, new versus renovation. That's a good start. But I would ask you to take perhaps 4 properties on the south side, 4 properties in Midtown, 4 properties in Uptown, 4 in Allison Hill, and run them through that matrix and show us the numbers. Because we're dealing not only with the question of whether or not individual homeowners would buy in or developers will buy in, but we're also talking about what that is going to do to our tax base, in particular, our tax base relative to the school district. So, if you take a $40,000 house in Midtown, run that through this matrix that you have there, and show us what the impact would be if that remains empty, right? Versus if it does get someone in there that within 2 years will be able to live in the house and pay school taxes, versus having that property empty and no school tax. So I'm saying perhaps 4 houses in each of those 4 areas, and then run each of those through your quadrant and come out with something that you can show us, the residents, the impact of having occupancy, the impact of having at least short-term employment while the renovations go on. So if you can do that, I will be feeling better about this process. It's not that I don't feel good about it now, because we have moved, we collectively have moved. But I still want to see somebody run some numbers, give us something that we can latch on to statistically to influence our decision making. Thank you.
We did present a couple sample properties at the last meeting. We did the Hamilton School. We did just as theoretical how they would look through we did a proposed development for down near PennDOT. And prior to that, Brian had talked about theoretical numbers with regard to housing development on the map. But we can go back and look. The problem is that it is all sort of theoretical, and no one has ever tried a LERTA bill like we are proposing here before. So we could look at Philadelphia to see the 10-year impact, but we can't really look anywhere else to see requirements like minority participation, local
labor, prevailing wage. That's never happened before. Erie was an example of where they had attempted to create a long-term job growth matrix like we have here, but that was just recently passed within the last 2 years, and so we don't really have enough data there. So we are somewhat precedent setting, but the point is certainly a good one.
Good evening, Sheila Delford, Bellevue Road, Harrisburg. I would suggest that with respect to the financial modeling, that you can control, whatever variables you can control, then you control for those variables. And I think it's important and imperative, actually, that we do engage in some financial modeling. I think that is good governance, and I think what we need to do is to actually reestablish some good practices when it comes to governance within our community, and this is a place where we can start. So I think that I have to say that I see some positive dialogue. I think that the push and push back, vice versa, I think that's very healthy. And I think that that is the way that you actually come to some agreed set of principles around how you move a community forward. I would say that with respect to local government, I have a question, and my question is, there are a series of what I would call expectations and promises that are that have been articulated tonight, for example, around targeted development. And I've heard the mayor say that that cannot be memorialized or embodied because within the ordinance. But the question is, how do you capture that? How do you memorialize it? In state government, you would do so, or at the federal level, you would do so in the form of a regulation. The question is, how do we, as a community at the local level, how do we capture that and ensure that the expectation is memorialized and is thereafter adhered to? I think that's really important because that goes to the issue of trust and the issue of expectations and understanding where we're going, direction. And until that happens, I think there's still going to be what I would call a great deal of concerns. There's a lot to this. Our community is pretty complex. We've been through a lot. There's going to be a lot to everything. That's the way this works. So we have to, though, respect both branches of government and all branches to the council. That's COU and SEL, as well as COU and CIL. And, but it is important that we capture all elements of what we're saying here because it can get lost and that can lead to problems down the road. With respect to Philadelphia, I'd like to make one final point, and that is, I'm a resident, I grew up in Philadelphia, I'm a native of Philadelphia, I'm a resident of Harrisburg. But I do think that we have to be very careful about using Philadelphia as our sort of exemplar right. I think it's, there's Bethlehem, there's Erie. I just think that I understand why we use it. Mr. Hudson has a great deal of expertise in this, and I think you made a very compelling case for why we need to start getting this together. I understand that very, very clearly. I am concerned, however, that Philadelphia is a city that is not the state capital, that is not it's a first-class city, we're a third-class city, and it has moving parts that are much different from that of the capital city, Harrisburg, which is what we are addressing. It's kind of like when New York City went, sort of bankrupt many, many years ago, and it was functionally bankrupt, but no one was going to let that happen. So it's a very different animal. So we have to be careful. There's just a lot more lift in the city. I do think that Bethlehem and some other places perhaps provide some better exemplars. And I do think we can, in fact, craft something that's a hybrid of what's been good in some other places. I'm glad that we have the prevailing wage, and I'm glad that we have labor involved, and I'm glad that we have minority participation. But we have to be careful. I also think we have to be clear that we are not a wealthy city. And when we talk about gentrification, what we have to understand is that that is a risk. We have to balance. We have to balance all of the needs of all of our community. That's what I would say. Thank you very much.
Can I respond briefly? Sure. I just want to say that I agree completely, and I would have said this to Ron as well, that
gentrification has to be balanced and against where we currently are. All of this is sort of a fine tuning, and the program doesn't work unless it is administered well. And we have a history in Harrisburg of programs that maybe weren't administered well or weren't administered with the advice and consent of council, and that's precisely the dynamic that we're trying to change. We respect council and have made it a close partner in every conversation that we've had. And this process has been about listening, to quote Les Ford. We didn't even draft a proposed LERTA ordinance until after we had received public input at the meeting that we had at the school district administration building, and all of these ideas came from that meeting. The minority participation, the prevailing wage, the responsible contractor, all of that. So the only thing I would say is that that's always been the goal. The goal has always been to listen to the community and to work with council to try and create something that works well. And I think we're really close, and I think the process has been a very positive one, and I think we've come a long way, and that's why we've spent the entire year working to do it.
Thank you, Mayor. Any further comments? Okay. We've clearly still got some work to do. We're going to be speaking with the solicitor's office, and I believe council members will continue to have their own individual conversations regarding the shape of the amendments, and the administration, of course, will be working with you as well. I do see the potential for a vote certainly next Tuesday. Again, I'm sure conversations will be had on that as well, but I do see and suggest that we do have the vote on Tuesday the 23rd to make sure that we continue to move this process along. But again, the conversations are going to continue at all levels. Thank you again for coming out, and appreciate your listening and your participation. Thank you.